Hello and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast or simply have an interest in sport, you have come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation and, as always, plenty of entertainment. How is it the first week of March already? Is it just me or does anyone else feel like the last 2 weeks have flown by? Thankfully, it's been busy over the past few weeks. I was back in the National Indoor Arena for the first time this year last weekend, hosting the Gymnastics Ireland Gym Start competition, which was so much fun. On Monday of this week, I was invited to be the guest speaker for the Defence Forces Women's Network event in celebration of International Women's Day. Huge thanks to Tricia Strelioff for the invitation to share some stories from my career and adventures in sport as part of this very special event. I hosted the Nuasan webinar last night with John Phelan, the Bike Fit Physio, who shared tips and tools to improve performance, fit and comfort on the bike. A very insightful session and I learned loads. Tonight, I'm really looking forward to hosting the Galway Triathlon Club's International Women's Day event. It literally is all go. In between all the talking over the past few days and indeed the past few weeks, I've been busy cramming for my trip to Lanzarote this Friday. At least that's what it's felt like, trying to rack up some mileage on the bike, in the pool and a little bit of running. I've actually really enjoyed the structure and routine of the training I've been doing, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting away and to getting a nice block of training done in the sun. I'm hoping the wind gods are asleep for the 2 weeks I'm out in Lanzarote. This week, as part of Women in Sport Week, we are spotlighting a selection of the incredible Irish female athletes who have joined me for a chat on the podcast, deep diving into the archives of the show. Pop over to the Try Talking Sport socials to see who has been featured and be sure to listen to their episodes if you haven't already listened to them, because you will be inspired and motivated to get moving. There are lots of events coming up over the coming weeks and months, so be sure to check out the events calendar on the Try Talking Sport website and also keep an eye on the socials this week as we share some discounts for a variety of events, and we'll also be holding some competitions for free race entries as part of our celebration of International Women's Day. Speaking of discounts, don't forget you can get 15% discount on all Nuasan products online using the code TTS15. If you are looking for a treat for yourself or for someone else, be sure to check out their products on www.nuasan.com. I have stocked up on my favourite product, the CBD Muscle Gel, for my trip to Lanzarote. I'm sure my legs will love me by the end of the trip. Now to this week's episode with Galway Triathlon Club member Tricia Strelioff from Canada, who has spent the last 20 years in Ireland embracing a life in sport. A chartered physiotherapist working out of her practice Motion Chartered Physiotherapy in Galway, she has embraced many an adventure over the years through her love of cycling and triathlon. With her appetite for a challenge and for travel, she took up triathlon just before she turned 40 and has raced at 5 IRONMAN events and a multitude of middle distance races since then. She makes a conscious effort to rarely return to the same place for a race, always seeking new locations to explore and enjoy. She recently raced at Ironman 70.3 Oman, finishing in 3rd place in her age group, stamping her ticket to race at the Ironman 70.3 World Championship in Finland in August of this year. Triathlon and indeed cycling is a huge part of her life. The friends she has amassed over the years through sport becoming her tribe and a very important ingredient in her success in sport and beyond. With her vibrant, energetic personality and can-do attitude, you cannot but be motivated to keep moving forward, chasing and achieving goals when in Tricia's company. This is a great episode of the podcast, slightly different to many of our other episodes, but the perfect guest choice to celebrate International Women's Day. Now go grab a cuppa and enjoy the show. Tricia Strelioff, first of all, welcome to the show. Second of all, do you want to tell the listeners how many times it has taken me to get the pronunciation of your name correct? Because everybody who knows you in Galway just knows you as Tricia Motion Physiotherapy, cyclist, triathlete, and none of us can pronounce your surname.
Well, actually, most people in their phones, when I see my name come up, it's either Trish Physio, Trish Canada, Trish Maple Motion Physio. But no, I'm actually quite impressed, Joe. You caught that quite quickly, and it's actually exhilarating to actually hear it being pronounced correctly for probably the first time in 4 years, because it's been 4 years since I've been home to Canada.
And it's been quite a while since I've called you down a finish line as well. Yeah. So I'm off the hook, but my fellow counterparts at Ironman, they've been put under pressure. So now every time you go to race abroad, I'm going to have to tell them it's Tricia Strelioff with an emphasis on the I.
Excellent, Joe. Fabulous.
So Trish, we're releasing this episode on International Women's Day. You are an international woman. not of mystery, but of cycling, triathlon, physiotherapy, originally from Canada, but you are celebrating 20 years in Ireland. That is some milestone.
Massive milestone. Yeah. So I was born and bred in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
I can't pronounce that.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. We'll give you that one.
Okay.
It's in the Midwest. The standing joke, if you're talking to another Canadian, is you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. It's so flat. So it's kind of halfway between Toronto and Vancouver, kind of above the Dakotas. Average temperature in the wintertime, -40, with peaking at -50, -55, but yet getting up to the mid-30s in the summertime. So we have 4 distinct seasons.
Bit like Ireland in one day.
Well, yeah, we don't get the -50s though.
That's true, yeah.
That's true. And we don't get the big, huge snowstorms. But yeah, that's probably one reason why I really like Ireland is actually the weather. It's never too hot. It's never too cold. It's either a little bit wet or really wet. It's just that horizontal wind that really can,
Yeah. So what brought you to Ireland?
So part of my clinical rotation in university was to spend doing clinical rotations, and you were encouraged to go outside of Saskatchewan. So I did a house exchange with a goofy newfie from Halifax, Nova Scotia, in the eastern part of Canada, where there's a huge Canadian-Irish population. So she had a twin sister, obviously, another goofy newfie. Where I lived, her sister went and lived with my mom. So she flew at the same time I flew. I never actually met her, ever. So anyway, I stayed in Halifax, Nova Scotia for 6 weeks doing clinical rotation. 8 weeks, was it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I did 2 clinical rotations. I can't remember now. One was in a private practice and one was in a hospital. And we lived the life of Eastern Canadian / Irish people. And it was just an amazing atmosphere. We met some cool people. They were definitely a different breed to the people in Western Canada, and fell in love with the Canadian Irish population. So I was working in the US for 7 years, and it was time that I needed to make a change in my life. I needed to get away. My parents had both passed away at 56 and 57.
Oh my God, so young.
Yeah. My mum in 1998, my dad in 2000. And I just needed a bit of a change, get away from American healthcare. I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina, working at a private orthopedic clinic with 17 orthopedic surgeons. So it was a massive clinic, and we were seeing loads of things. But ethically, I was struggling because it was a financial, everything was about money. And I like just to touch people. I like to visit with people. And I was feeling like it was more like McDonald's, and can I supersize that and extra fries with that and charge more and get them out the door quicker. And I had people working under me, so I had very little hands-on or one-on-one with patients. I had 2 or 3 people going at the same time. Anyway, I decided, let's make a change, go off to Canada initially. I was going to go back to Canada. I was going to go back to Eastern Canada, and I thought, Canada was in a recession. Why not go to the real Ireland? So I got myself a job in Limerick, Castletroy Physiotherapy Clinic. Amazing physio. She was beyond what a normal physio would do, in my opinion. I just thought she was the best thing ever. Got involved with Young Munster Rugby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was the physio that was with the team. And I don't know, like what I expected, but it was just, yeah, the buzz and the crack, as you guys call it. Now it's my word too. But yeah, just really, and you were traveling on the bus. So you would be an all-day affair. Off you'd go Sunday morning, and you'd be gone for the day and come home. No motorway at that stage. So it was flats of beer as we left the pitch, and it was a sing-song all the way home on the bus. By the end of the season, I finally was able to sing one song. I think, I can't even remember what it was, but I was able to start one song, and then the whole bus would get going, and I could even participate in the sing-song. So I think that kind of a culture attracted me. I said, oh, well, maybe I'll stay one more year. One more year I'll stay involved. And one more year led to another year, now 20 years later. Yeah. But I decided, because I thought, oh, I'm going to be going back to America. I still had a house there. I had 2 houses, actually. I rented them out. I just said, look, you stay here, you stay there. I'm gone for a year. I'll come back and deal with this later. So 3 years later, I finally went back and moved my stuff, my personal effects, back to Canada, and rented them both with nothing in it. So I had televisions, I had beds. They all just went to friends. I didn't care where they went. Stuff got shipped back to Canada. I never went back. Yeah. So anyway, then I decided I better go off to Australia before I decided to go back, that I decided I wasn't going to actually go back to America. So I got a job in a place called Penrith Physiotherapy Clinic, a 3-month locum. Off I went, and it was just amazing. Came back, obviously my job in Limerick was gone, moved up to Galway, but Galway's cliquey. I'm really cliquey, and I was like, Jesus. So I was going home back to Limerick. I still actually have the key to the house that I stayed in. My friend Mairead, she's like my sister. I would go back every weekend, and then I decided I gotta kind of stay up in Galway a little bit more. But then they came calling again, and they said, Tricia, do you want another subsidised trip down under? This time we'll buy you a round the world trip ticket. You can come to Australia, go home to Canada, come back to Ireland. So I was like, I could take that up. So I decided, gone off there for 6 months, and it was just an amazing place to work. It was a really state-of-the-art place. We were physios for the Penrith Professional League Rugby League team. We were actually the centre that physios in our practice dealt with the rowers, paddlers, the canoeists, the kayakers from the Olympic Centre, because Penrith was where that kind of went with the Sydney Olympics. So it was just a gamut of experience. And the lovely man that I was covering a locum for gave me the car, gave me the fuel card. I had a house up in the mountains. Like, why wouldn't I have stayed on? And then I was like, oh gosh, he came home, and then I had to give the car back. And I had to kind of, but he goes, oh, my mum, she's gone to China. Here, you can have her car, you can have her house. So then I had another kind of 6 weeks there. And then they actually found me a place in the town until, I went off to New Zealand and cycled the South Island of New Zealand. So, you work 3 months, just take a month off. You work. And then I got involved with Cycle Queensland while I was there. So I flew in, was the physio for the 1-week cycling tour across Queensland. I was tenting. And they just set my tent up. I worked a couple hours as a physio every evening, and we cycled to the next little village. So I did that. Went from Gundawindi to the Gold Coast 1 year, and then from kind of above Cairns, I can't think of the name of it, wherever Crikey's from. Anyway, come down to Mission Beach another year. So it's just a great way to see another part of the world. Took a weekend and went off to Tasmania. And then, anyway, that was my first 6 months. Then before I left there, they said, well, would you come back again? I said, well, I've got to go. My sister's having a baby. I said I promised I'd help out. Not that I'd be any good with children, but anyway, I said I'd come help her out in Canada. So that was because that was my round the world trip ticket. But yeah, I'll come back again. So then I went back to Canada, back to Ireland, back to Australia again. So they got me 2 round the world trip tickets there, and then I settled back in Galway, and finally this time settled, and I got involved with the Galway hurling team. So when they came looking for a subsidised trip down under, I was up to my tonsils in hurlers, and that was me, not stuck here, but like I was committed for 3 years. So yeah. And then I got my own little clique, and I can't remember, I was always a cyclist. Well, I shouldn't say that. Before I left America, a guy by the name of Danny Thompson, who's actually contacted me and is coming here in 3 weeks. So ironic. Haven't seen him in 20 years, but they got me involved in cycling. I got a stress fracture from running, and the doc said, Trish, you've got to do something other than run. Got on my bike and fell in love with it. So when I came here, another really interesting side note, I had a bike in a box. I had to put it together. Like, I didn't know. I was very new to cycling, and I was like, a bike, a box, pieces, parts. Guess who put my bike together? Jerry Murray, Conor Murray's dad. So he was one of the first people I met when I came here. Bike parts missing or something, and he put my bike together. And we've been friends ever since. Yeah. Wow. And there was a group of us, myself, another guy from Belgium, and a guy from Israel, plus all our Limerick crew. So we were kind of like a little international clique. And we ended up doing lots of international cycling at that stage. So he was there. This is 2003 when I first came. And he wanted to see different parts, and he wanted us to come to Belgium. So we did things like the Frempe. I did the Tour of Flanders 4 times. We cycled the Tour of Ardennes, like all these different parts of Belgium. And then another time we did Belgium to Prague. So 9 days, 6 countries, 1,500 kilometers. And then another year we did Belgium up through the Normandic region of France. They had a van following us, a fridge full of beers, and off we went. And we had destinations. The wives met us on the road with sandwiches and food, and we did kind of 170k a day for 9 days. It was absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's a total sidetrack. But anyway, and then we did Israel. So Jerry Murray was with us he didn't do the 2 trips into Belgium, but he did the top to the bottom of Israel with us. Anyway, So that was how I started, was with cycling. And then when I came to Galway, I actually think it was Miriam Wall. I blame Miriam for everything. God bless her. But anyway, I think I was out cycling with her. And she's like, why don't you try this triathlon? And Dee has it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And we were out and they were like, try this triathlon stuff. I'm like, no, I haven't swam since I was like sub-teens. And running was something I always just kind of did, but never off the bike. So anyway, it was going to be my 40th birthday. And I said, look, I need to just try this triathlon thing before. I want to say I did a triathlon before.
Were you having an early midlife crisis?
Yeah, well, I was thinking I was going down that route. And I'll never forget. And to this day, it was out in Loughrea. And nervous as bejesus. I go in to set my bike up and I wasn't involved with the tri club at all. I think Miriam and Kieran Cassidy took me swimming a few times. And I knew I could do the 750. I knew how to put the wetsuit on. But I got into transition. And who was beside me racking but Arthur Beeds, of all people. And I think he actually was top 5 that day. But he actually helped me set my transition up. Like, that's how humble people in the Galway Tri Club were. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is like a family here. Because they were everywhere. And they were like, oh, it's okay. And you do this and do that. And anyway, did my first triathlon. And then watched the 70.3 in the pissing rain.
In 2011.
2011. Because then I turned 40 that September. So I had done my little... And then I watched that and I thought, oh my gosh, and I have to do it next year. So 2012, I did a sprint triathlon in a pool up in Castlebar. I did an Olympic, I think it was Hell of the West. And then I did the 70.3 in Galway that year and came 3rd in my age category. And I thought, well, this is it. This is my sport. Absolutely, I did.
So that was the time when the 70.3 World Championships were in Vegas.
Yes, but I didn't get a slot. Miriam Wall was going.
That was it, yeah.
She got a slot, but I didn't get a slot. Thank goodness gracious, because that would have been way overwhelming for me. The first year, just doing my first kind of boom, 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 like you wouldn't normally. And then, because it was out in N59, I have some patients, loads of patients in Oughterard. They were on the road with a Go Trish sign. Like, everybody thought I was from Oughterard because they saw this Go Trish sign. And like a whole family standing on the side of the road. Well, I started crying because I was so emotional, thinking, because then they turned everything around and were there on the way back as well. And everybody, anyway, still it gets me a bit emotional talking about it because they're an amazing family. They're O'Hallorans, and I call them my Irish mammy and daddy because they just play that kind of a role. So, yeah, anyway, off on a tangent.
So, Trish, let's maybe bring it back to when you were young, because we've kind of gotten the sense of where you are now and I suppose up to when you kind of came to Galway and some of the bits that you did. But as a kid growing up, did you do sport?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm. So we moved to the farm and my dad didn't want animals much. So if we wanted animals, we had to take care of them. We got up and... So we got horses. My sisters and us, we rode competitively, 4-H, and my sisters actually still ride quite competitively back home.
Yes, and you sent me a podcast with your sister in it where somebody pronounced her name properly.
Yes, and she also has the same issue because when she's riding, the poor announcer really just hammers their name. So she was adamant to speak to the announcers, so now they have her name right as well. But yeah, so I got involved with basketball. Basketball was actually my sport growing up. And Saskatoon was hosting the Canadian Games in this is going to give my age away, 1989. It was the under-19s. So anyway, do the math. And they had a team that they were preparing 3 years prior to it. So I got on this team back, I would have been 14, 15, got involved in this team that in 3 years' time was going to be in Saskatoon, playing in the Canadian Games. So that's what I think gave me my love to travel, because this team traveled internationally. And that I was out in Moncton, New Brunswick, and I was in a lot of places in Ontario. Every summer they took us touring and we played different teams from different parts of Canada. So that was kind of, I was 15, 16, 17. Yeah, so that was 3 years. And then 1989, I graduated high school, played in the Canadian Games, and then was on a university. I played university basketball. But at that stage, I was completely burnt out of basketball. The smell of a leather ball now gives me... I can't even go watch basketball because the smell of a leather ball gives me anxiety back then. Yeah. So that was it. Kabuchi. Haven't touched a ball, haven't shot a basketball since 1989. Yeah. And then I went to uni. First, actually, I got really injured. So this is how got me into physio school. I got a really bad Achilles tendon injury. And I ended up going to the university. So there was physio in the university. He was in charge of the basketball team, the track and field team, the football team. And his name was Pete Friesen, the legend that he is. And I'm still in touch with him because it was his idea. This is the career for you. So initially I was playing basketball and I was in physical education. I was going to be a PE teacher. Then I realized, I'm not going to make a very good PE teacher. I can't stand that age population on a one-to-one basis. I had an amazing PE teacher and I thought I wanted to be a PE teacher. But then when I met Pete and he helped me rehab my Achilles tendon, I was fitter post-injury than I was pre-injury. And him and his wife, Shelley, we all became really good friends. And I actually stayed with him for a while. And I can't remember why I stayed with him, but he really mentored me. So when I graduated physio school, he left the university and he took a job with the Hartford Whalers, which is a professional ice hockey team, which North Carolina bought. So the Hartford Whalers moved down to Raleigh, North Carolina. So
I see where all of this is going, Trish.
Yeah. So I was working. I left when I graduated uni. I took a job in Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma. Lasted a year there, no comment. Moved to Dallas, Texas for 2 years. So there was 3 tornadoes in Oklahoma when I was there for the year. So natural disasters happening all around me. I said, I'm getting out of here. Moved down to Dallas, Texas, got a job in a hospital system there, got involved in outpatient orthopedics then. And that's what gave me my love for private practice type work. And we had 100 days of over 100, like a heat wave. People on the streets, fan drives, donating fans to these elderly people that didn't have air conditioning. 100 degrees in Celsius is around the 40s. So we had 100 days of over 40 degrees. So that, me being from Canada, I was running from an air conditioned building to an air conditioned. So anyway, I got in touch with Pete and I said, Pete, where are you at now? I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I said, I need to get out of here. I'm looking for a job. Can you find me a job? He's like, actually, the orthopedic surgeons that cover the Carolina Hurricanes hockey team is this Raleigh Orthopedic Clinic. Let me put in a good word. Boom, boom, boom. Things happen. My dad comes down. We load up a van and off we go across the country, myself and my dad, driving through all these southern states. I grew up with country music. I'm a huge country music fan. Yes, I can two-step.
I'm cringing for you now, Trish.
Absolutely. Unbelievable. So where do we my dad and I have to stop? It's in Nashville, like the home of country music. Memphis, Dollywood, like we just had to kind of get our fix in Tennessee, made our way over to Raleigh, North Carolina, and that's where I stayed for another 4 years and till I took my plunge across the pond, and here I am.
And here you are. So now, businesswoman, Maple Motion Physio in Galway, just near the Claddagh in Galway. Let's talk about some of your training and your racing here now. So 2012, you did IRONMAN 70.3 Galway. So what's happened in between?
So being kind of unwell as I was younger, I didn't have very good bone density. So stress fracture happened in Raleigh when I was always out running, had to take on the bike. But then, unfortunately, I was sitting in the back of a Jeep. We were going to an outdoor movie. So they would open up a park and show a movie on a wall in the museum in North Carolina. We were sitting at the traffic lights, ready to turn left, and a drunk driver came and hit us from behind. An open-top Jeep, eskies full of beer and wine, and we had candelabras and kind of lounge chairs. We were all set up for the night. Bang, through the intersection. He was going 40 miles an hour, and he was flaming drunk. I jumped out of the Jeep because I couldn't breathe. My diaphragm actually went into spasm. Unbeknownst to myself, I had a T7 compression fracture and an L1 burst fracture. So the vertebral body.
What does that mean to the layperson?
Yeah. So the vertebral body is the big round bone in your spine. It burst, and what ended up happening, the piece that fell off was pushing against my spinal cord. So if you actually looked at the MRI scan, you would have said I was paraplegic or something but thankfully I didn't have a spinal cord injury. The beauty of the body is it just wrapped around this big burst fracture in my back. So initially, because I was walking around trying to catch my breath, the 2 other people were strapped into the ambulance, spinal, collars and everything like that, and me walking around. And they're like, "You're fine." They kept taking my O2 stats. I'm like, "I can't breathe." And they sat me in the A&E for 3 hours in a wheelchair. Finally, I lied on the floor in the A&E. I said, "I can't sit any longer." This guy pulls me off, puts me on a trolley, and then boom, 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 morphine in my arm, and things happened really quickly when they realized I could be a massive spinal cord injury. Thankfully, I worked with 17 orthopedic surgeons. The neurosurgeon on call was prepping me for surgery. They were going to go in and stabilize this fracture. And as I'm fasting for the surgery the next day, 2 of the spinal consultants from the actual clinic I worked at saw my chart and looked at the images, and then came to me and said, "Trish, hold on a second. Your neurosigns are fine. This is fine. There's no urgency in fixing this fracture. Our suggestion is let's brace it and watch your neuroscience." I was happy days. So I went and got a polypropylene brace. I looked like a Ninja Turtle, right from my neck to my strapped in, big, huge Velcro yokes. So that was me. 6 weeks. My dad flew down from Canada, and because I wasn't allowed to leave until I had somebody with me, because I couldn't even put my knickers on. And that was us for a week. And then, unfortunately, my grandfather, his father, passed away that week. So there's my dad needing to go back, because my grandfather has just, and again, I was really close with my grandfather. So I was broken, couldn't fly home. I was unsafe to even sit in a car. So this is the beauty of a small world. My friend from high school's husband was playing for the Carolina Hurricanes, National Hockey League team. They were both down from Saskatchewan. They had actually came over from, I think they were in, I don't know, another part of the States. He got transferred to the Carolinas. They bought this beautiful house. Anyway, she goes, "Trish, you come stay with me. A glass house and a hurricane expected." Jesus. I had this whole little upstairs bedroom, "Trish, you get up everything." I'm going to lie out. And I was like, "Yeah, but there's a hurricane coming. We're in a glass house, 3 stories of glass windows. Beautiful, but not when a hurricane's coming." So I stayed up watching the eye of the storm, and you could see it coming. So I was in my polypropylene brace, ready to go just in case anything happened. I hear this massive crash down the stairs. I go, she comes out of the basement. She was like, "You're out of her room." She goes, "Trish, where are you going?" I said, "I heard a crash. I heard a boom. I'm going into the toilet. Put the dog bed down. I'm going to go." It's the only place that has 4 walls, cement. "I'm going into the toilet. Put the dog bed down. And I'm going to go sleep with the dog." Anyway, get up in the morning, and sure enough, a big, huge tree took out the entire porch of the house beside us. So got myself stable enough to fly home 6 weeks later, see my granny, see my dad, and rehab there. I was out of work for, they said, at least the bones of 2 months. But I went home to just do some rehab and went every day to the gym trying to get myself strong. In the meantime, then my dad started to get sick. And he hadn't been to it. This is another go to a doctor. He hadn't been to the doctor in 15, 20 years. So I had to kind of find him a doctor. And between the jigs and reels, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And he was losing weight quickly. I had to go back to work. I was back to work. So that was in September when I had my accident. By November, I was back to work. And by Christmas time, I was back running again. And they came down to visit me. But at that stage, my dad looked anorectic, like he was just a bone wreck. Diagnosed with then bone mets in January and dead in February. So his anniversary is actually on Monday. Oh. Yeah, mad. 23 years dead. So all that sort of, between my mum passing 18 months before that, my accident, and then my dad passing, it was a tough 18 months. So my whole family were a little bit on the rails at that stage, and we all needed a bit of help and a little bit of counselling. And one of the best decisions I made was just to get out of North Carolina and come to Ireland. And it's been the best therapy. And like my family even says, whatever you do, Tricia, don't come back to Canada. We haven't seen you happier. We haven't seen you thriving more. And I have to agree with them. It's one of the best decisions I made.
Yeah, but you've kind of come in no more than myself and become embedded in the community as well. You know, Miriam and Deirdre and all that gang in the Tri Club were all amazing. Fiona Donovan, all those guys and girls in the Tri Club, Chris Burke and the rest of them. You know, we were all kind of
the old community.
We're all the old. I feel like we're the oldies, even though we're still young. Yeah. But I suppose one of the key things is how well you integrated yourself into the community, because you were working for other people here before you set up on your own. But I suppose it just goes to show how important, you know, when you do come to a new place, finding that clique, I suppose, when you're an outsider. So you mightn't be in the thick of the clique, but you're in your own group, in an environment that you're safe in, that you enjoy the company of others, very like-minded people. So now, like, your cycling, triathlon, your circle is huge, aside from your patient circle, but actually your own personal community that rallies around you is 95% probably triathlon and cycling.
Well, I call it my tribe. I'm in Galway, I have a tribe, and I sustained a bad accident 2021, came off my bike, hit a sheep up in Shanafashting and broke my elbow. And I just realized the tribe that I had, like people I could call upon, people rallying around me. And you can take for granted a lot of things that seem obvious. And then when you really need people and they're there, I had porch fairies, I called them. Like I'd sleeping on the couch and then I could hear a ruffle outside and there would be somebody dropping something in my porch. Breach knocked in and her pots of soup and her mum's brown bread. Like because I actually hurt my jaw as well. I couldn't open my mouth, God bless me. And
really? We both can talk, so when you can't talk, that's the biggest issue, never mind the broken elbow.
Absolutely. So what I could survive on breach knocked in soup and her mother's gorgeous brown bread, and I literally lived on that for the first 2 weeks because it was fabulous anyway. But those are the kind of people, like porch fairies, people coming and collecting me, taking me places, because I don't sit around very well. And
hard when you don't have family. Like, it's one thing to have family and say, oh, come here, will you pick me up and bring me somewhere?
Yeah.
But when you don't have family and you are relying on your friends who are your family, and I think that's a massive part of it's a compliment to you in a way that you've been able to generate those people around you and have them as your tribe.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure a compliment is the word.
It's like-minded people. I surround myself with positive and like-minded people. Like, negativity is no good. And if you surround yourself with like-minded people doing things that you love, like triathlon's now, I'm a physio. I'll always be a physio and I'll always be Canadian. But triathlon's like my identity now. It keeps me balanced. I love work, but if only I had work, that's not healthy. And if only I could never be a professional triathlete, because I like the balance between the social life of training, getting up every morning, knowing you're going to meet somebody, or when you do have the odd session that you have to do on your own, you really appreciate it when the rest of the other people come. And then kind of using triathlon as tourism. I've been able to travel the world and see some amazing places because I try not to do the same race twice. And with that takes people that want to see those different places as well. And having your travel buddies and your triathlon husbands, and not having my own husband, I borrow other ones, and they're fabulous. Like, and you can return them when you're finished with them. And but been able to kind of go to different places and see different things. And for instance, recently going to Oman, Rachel Farrell used to live there for 3 years. Met her through cycling, who's also a triathlete, but she lived there. So I messaged her, I was like, look, I'm thinking about going to this place. This is where you used to live, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely amazing. Go for it. I had friends from Cork actually going, who also had a friend out in Oman, which was the kind of linchpin in pushing me to go. And then just before I left, I messaged Rachel and said, do you have like a triathlete friend or something like that I could rely on for a swim or a cycle, or just where to go, where not to go? And she said, friend this guy on Instagram. Anyway, turns out Hatham was an amazing host, and he couldn't have done enough for myself and 2 or 3 other people that were also new to Oman and new to Muscat. And we were the Omani guest tribe, and I would never have seen or experienced or eaten the food and went to the places and shared stories like I did. The race itself was amazing, but the lead into the race and the experience of Oman and Muscat, I couldn't not but race well because I was on a high leading into the race. I had trouble sleeping the night before because I was so excited just to what was happening around me. So, to go to a race on your own in the Middle East, across the world, as a female, into a country where I knew absolutely nothing about. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. And I was just treated like a princess. So, highly recommend Oman. Highly recommend that kind of Middle Eastern experience because, I'm a vegetarian and I've never eaten pre-race so well. Like, I was actually worried. Like, I'm very meticulous with my food in the few days before a race. And then like we were eating every kind of culture and every kind of ethnicity of food, and it all agreed with my tummy, thank God.
And you have agreed to write a race report for me
Yes,
about Oman,
yes,
so we won't
absolutely.
spend too much time on it, but you did qualify for the Ironman 30.3 World Championships in Finland for August of 2023, so that's very exciting now. Is that the biggest goal for this year, or have you another race in the pipeline? You usually have something else in the pipeline.
Well, I'm an energizer buddy. I like to, that's my energy system. I don't have many fast twitch fibers, so I kind of got involved with Ironman distance as kind of chuck, away I go, and that's where I like to work. But my goal this year is to try and do a bit of shorter racing. Normally my A race is an Ironman, and then I throw in a 70.3 just to as part of the training. This year I want to see, can I focus on a little bit of the shorter distance, and then at the end of the year do Ironman Portugal in October.
In Cascais. There's a big crew going over from Ireland. Oliver Harkin has a massive crew going over to Cascais in October, and it is a fabulous race.
Yes,
no
I
bother
actually
to you.
did it in 2019, that's 70.3, but they've changed the course. They've reversed it. I love Cascais. So I said, if I'm going to go back and do a late season race, might as well go back there, experience a different course, but in the same kind of a place.
Yeah. So Trish, you're very disciplined. Like, you're disciplined with your nutrition, you're disciplined with your training, you're disciplined with your timing, you know, in terms of your being out in the morning early for the swims, getting to work, you're on your bike, you're more often than not, you're cycling in and out to work. How do you stay so disciplined and motivated?
I think it's a bit of organization. I think it's a bit, I'm a bit of a control freak too.
Really?
Just a bit. I like mornings. I train better in the mornings. So usually 5:30, 6:15, I'm ready to go. I get a session done before work, whether it's a swim or a bike. And then I work kind of 8 to 8 most days. So I take a kind of a break in the middle of my day because I can't just keep going through the day. 12-hour day is just too long. So I take a break in the middle of my day and go for a run or go for another swim, or I do some physio type stuff in the middle of my day outside of the clinic so that I can kind of come back. So it's like I have 2 half days. And I discovered that probably the bones of 10 years ago. And it really works for me because anything after 4:00, don't get me to train. I'm good. I'm fine in the clinic. Don't get me to do anything technical like write up reports or anything like that. But by 8:00, that's me, done, dusted, home, food. Thankfully, I actually found out about this company called Fuel Your Body. So because I need to fuel my body, and I was batch cooking on a Sunday, eating the same bloody meal for 4 days solid, not very exciting. Gabe Walsh actually was the one that told me about it. And so I order my meals, so I get 10 meals a week delivered to the clinic. So that's me, my lunch and my dinner during the week when I'm kind of trying to pull these 12-hour days, and then my nutrition is taken care of. So I bring my own breakfast, I have my lunch, and then I come home, I have my dinner, and literally I'm trying to get into bed by 10:00 when I'm kind of finishing work at 8:00. It's a short window to get into bed, try and settle the body and get some sleep, because I know 8 hours would be good for me, but most of the time it's about 7.
And how do you relax? Like, what do you do to relax outside of triathlon and cycling? Because, you know, often people would say, oh, I saw Tricia out cycling today. You'd always see the blonde hair flying, and she's flying on the bike. And so what do you do, like, say, on a Sunday afternoon now when you're off after you've done your big spin or your run? What do you do to just chill out now that you don't have to do the batch cooking on a Sunday?
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. And that's the beauty of triathlon, because through triathlon, I've met some amazing people. So it is like you don't have to necessarily be out on the bike, although that is a huge social component to my sessions. Is go for a coffee, go for a walk, chill out and talk shite. I think it's more just spending quality time with people that you enjoy. Yeah. Catch up with family, sometimes on the phone. To tell you the truth, Monday to Friday I have very little downtime to relax, so the weekends I kind of try to make sure and catch up with people. I have a little godson too down in Limerick, and he kind of has been following all this triathlon craziness. So his goal this past summer, 9, was to cycle the Limerick Greenway with me. So his family was in France for the summer, the whole family training. Trish, are you coming down? We're going to cycle this Greenway, 35 kilometers. I was like, you're 9 years old, not a bother to you. And so not only did he cycle the 35 kilometers, his 7-year-old brother cycled the 35 kilometers. Like, we averaged 19 kilometers an hour. Like, we weren't
That's not slow.
No. And then, of course, because the 7-year-old did it, well, we can't stop now. We have to cycle back towards Newcastle West. So we ended up doing 50 kilometers that day. 9. Total inspiration. My heart was full. I was just like, oh, if I can, like, if this is what I do can encourage other kids, women, people, anything to be able to do it. And on an aside, having had injuries like I have, to be able to come back and know it's really helped me as a physio to be able to say, oh yeah, like I've had both hips broken. I broke my intertrochanteric fracture of my left hip in 1999. This is my experience with Irish healthcare. I was a physio out on the pitch, covering a rugby match with young Munster. A tackle went wrong. I was on the side of the pitch because I had just barely cleaned up people and got them back on their feet, moved myself and my bags just off of the pitch in the end zone, or whatever you want to call the end there. And they intercepted the ball after they kicked it. I barely was on the sideline. Tackle went wrong. Both of these rugby players flew into me. I should have been back actually at. John Lacey was one of the guys that hit me. And he's now an RFU referee. After that kind of incident, they changed the rules so that the game can't start till the physio's actually back on. So these two big blokes, I'm underneath the tackle, can't get up. Mick Griffin, who'd be like the doc at the time, come on, Trish. I'm like, no, doc, I can't get up. There's something fucking wrong here. And he pulled me up. I puked and he put me back down again. Then these lads from Oman Rugby came out with a stretcher, hooched me up onto the stretcher. Oh, the pain of it. And so anyway, ended up having to have a DHS put in my hip. So I had a complete
What's a DHS?
Dynamic hip screw. So a plate and a screw up through my femoral neck. That was in 1999, yeah. And so that was me. Physio Trish in the wars, like even the Irish Independent came to the hospital to interview me. Like with the occupational
Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
At wrong time, absolutely. Mick Galway was the coach. And him and John Lacey came to the hospital to see me, and there I was practicing my walk going up and down the hallway.
So how does your body hold up now? Because you do have quite a rigorous training session. Like, what did you cycle today? You probably cycled for 4 hours today.
Yeah, not quite. A little over 3 hours. Yeah. Okay,
but you probably did like a long run yesterday or a cycle or something. So you've compounded training all the time on your body. How does your body react to the training now? And you've had quite a lot of injuries that we haven't even talked about.
Yeah. Well, what was funny is because I got a generic coach when I got into triathlon, which gave me a generic program. And the first year I broke down. I got a stress fracture in the other hip. The following year, first year, I got stress fractures, 2 really bad ones in my foot. Ended up doing the swim and the bike because I couldn't get my money back in Ironman Sweden, and put my boot on and watched the rest of the race. The following year, tried to come back again, different coach, stress fracture in my hip. So then I pulled the pin on trying to do Ironman racing for a year, and then got involved with John Kniff. And he calls himself my damage limitator, because I actually got him on board. I was like, I have no trouble doing the training, but I need somebody to tell me what not to do and how can we gradually build up my ability to try and do an Ironman one day. So my Ironman training plan was maxing out at 25 kilometers a week. And I was able then to do Ironman, whatever one was it, Barcelona in 2017. And it was supposed to be a walk-run strategy. But like on the day, I was like, the walk-run, I'm just going to keep going. I'll shuffle through the aid stations. That was my goal. Run to the aid station, shuffle through it, get some food on board, and ended up still like doing like a 4.5 hour marathon at the end of it. So then it was like, okay, you can handle a little bit more load. So then we've slowly built it up to last year, and just recently for Oman, I was comfortably up to 50k a week. But my long runs never really go beyond 20, 25 kilometers, even for Ironman training, because I just have to be careful with my bone density. I've had 27 fractures at this stage, so I do not want to be taking that chance. Although now I went from bones of a 9-year-old at 28 to reversing it with proper intervention, parathyroid hormone injections, and eventually weaning off all medications in the last 4 years, I think it is, where my bone density now is better than it was when I was 28. So the take-home message is that, yeah, you can have a bone density issue, which could be considered a silent disease and life-changing with 27 fractures, and still be able to go against all medical advice and ended up doing 5 full Ironmans now to date. So, and probably at least, I think I was trying to go back and look at it, 15 or 20 half Ironmans at this stage.
We see now a lot of, I suppose, I'm 45 this year.
Woohoo,
I think it's 45.
there
I think I was about to say 46, but I think I'll be 45. I was born in 1978. What age am I? I think I'm 44.
Yeah.
Am I going to
5, 3,
Am I 45?
8, coming this year.
Oh, I'll be 45 this year, not 45 yet.
No.
Okay,
This year,
that's okay.
yeah.
God, I had to think about that for a second. That was weird.
I know, I have to do the math too.
I know, yeah. But we're being told by lots of people that we should be starting to lift weights and for our bone density and for our metabolism and everything. And it's kind of psychologically hard to do it when you're doing 3 sports, because you're doing swim, cycle, run. The last thing you want to do is throw on your gear and go do a strength and conditioning class. But it's so important for bone density, for minding our bodies, for getting the most out of them across swim, bike and run. We have to have that basic.
Yeah, vital. I always refer to it as the carrot. So the swim, bike and run is the carrot. If you don't do the prep work, and especially for me with my bone density, I do 3 sessions a week. Even in full Ironman training, I'll still get 2 sessions done. Right now, I've got 3, and I try and do kind of like a yoga sequence every night for about 10 or 15 minutes. But I do think as we get older, that becomes even more important for load management, tendon, joint, ligamentous health. Like, I see a lot of bone stress injuries, and it's usually to do with too much, too off, too soon, you know what I mean?
I've had it myself.
Absolutely. And then like that, simple tendinopathies and risk of those types of injuries become even more as we get older. We just lose water, flexibility, all that sort of stuff. So we become much more susceptible for any kind of injury. So I do believe a strength and condition, and it has to be very kind of specific to what you need to do. Bit of strength and conditioning is essential. Yeah.
You mentioned there that you've done 5 full Ironman races and somewhere between 15 and 20 middle distance races. If you were to go back and do a race, what one would you do?
Austria.
Yeah,
Ironman Austria was absolutely scenery, epic, just like breathtaking. Like I go back and look at some of those pictures and I'm like, breathtaking. The water,
Z, isn't it?
Yeah, the water was like swimming in somebody's aquarium. It was blue, crystal blue. You saw fishes. It was very warm, so we had a non-wetsuit swim, which for me, being not a strong swimmer, was a huge stress. But to swim a kilometre into the middle of the lake with no wetsuit, that's my doty. I mean, no doty, and off I go into the middle of the lake, chasing this guy on budgie smugglers. I said, at least if I follow the guy with the budgie smugglers, he's going to be good feet. And we just flew through the crowd with me hanging on to this. I just remember thinking, oh, there he is. Where's his budgie smuggler? And then we turn the corner, coming back in, and then you come into the canal. And it's like you're swimming into a football stadium. People lining the canal and roaring and screaming, and then under the bridge. And but the only downside to that race, and I'd love to go back and do it when it wasn't so hot. It was like 26, 27 degrees in the water, then out onto the course. Like my Garmin read highest temperature 38 degrees. Like,
what year did you do that race?
This year. Last year, 2022.
2022.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like that European heat wave was out there.
Wow, yeah. Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Yeah. And then you're getting, I was like on the run course around 2:00 and it was 33 degrees.
Melting.
Not a cloud in sight. Puff of wind. Like if it wasn't for all the people in the residential houses with their hoses out, like I just stood in the hose. That's like, head to toe, please. Head to toe. You
seem to like the hot weather though, because you've got Barcelona, Oman, Austria. Yeah. Will we get you to Ireland this year? Will you do the 70.3 in Ireland?
No, although I might.
You'll be in Finland the week after. Or you'll be in Finland the week after.
Yes, I'll be down there supporting.
Good.
And then hopefully my Omani buddies might
come over.
Yeah, so I said I had to do the heat prep. They're going to have to do the sit in an aircon with somebody blowing water on them, Just
of all of your sporting success, Trish, and we haven't spoken about like all the stuff you've done around cycling, all the trips you've organised, all the stuff you've done with the cycling events like the Tour of Flanders and all the bits and pieces. But of everything that you've done, what are you most proud of?
Good question. I think it's more of the consistency. I don't really like racing. I know you have to have a goal. So I set a goal to race, but I think showing up every day and the consistency of that, and the fact that I've been able to overcome numerous amounts of injuries and illnesses that I think it's to be able, and especially to share it with patients, like people come in with back pain. Oh yeah, I have 2 fractures. It's okay. Different kind of thing that you're having now, but we know how to rehab this thing. Hip pain, foot pain, Achilles tendinopathies, like you name it. I pretty much might have had it. So I think it gives them a reassurance that you, A, know what you're talking about, B, can be empathetic with it, and then C, be able to kind of say, you can come out the other side. You've got hope. There's a way to deal with some of these things. And I think as catastrophic as some injuries can be, it's what you've learned from it, what you've built on it, and what you've been able to come out the other side and show for it, and to be able to bring people along on that journey and know that it is a journey. It's not just the race. Like, to me, the race is great, but it's the journey to get there that's just addictive. Like, it's just what gets me up in the morning every day. Just that feeling of achievement when you've got it finished, whether you finished first or 21st. It's more of showing up at the start line, getting to the start line. I've always said a few mishaps, not getting to them. So to be able to get there, tick the box, pick a goal every time that is a personal goal. Like, I've really been trying to improve my running. So to be able to get off the bike and try and run well, I know I can cycle because I love cycling. If I was given a choice, I'd cycle more. But I've actually enjoyed my cycling more when I'm not doing it all the time.
Yeah, and it's funny because just before you called over, so we're recording this in the kitchen on Sunday, the 26th of February. I did my first long spin since a long time now today. So 3 hours out on the gravel bike on an adventure. But this is my second full week of triathlon training since 2017. Now, I know I've done lots of bike training throughout COVID and everything, but before you came over, I have a calendar and I had literally just written out the sessions I was going to do, like either swim and bike or bike and run or strength and conditioning or bike 2 hours, bike 3 hours, whatever. So across the whole lot of this week, I've done something that I set myself out to do, with the exception of my run and my strength and conditioning. And the sense of achievement I got from just highlighting everything. Now, obviously, there's a little gap there, but I'm training for Lanzarote to go out on a training camp with Oliver Harkin, as we know. And the most important piece of training I did was actually eating a cinnamon bun on my cycle today. But definitely every day, the goal of knowing that, okay, I need to get out of my bike today, or I need to go running, and then actually just coming home and going, oh, I actually nailed it.
Yeah. That far outweighs.
Yeah. It's really good. But I think, what I've found as well is that I've kind of gone back to when we were training for a race around Ireland, where I'm now kind of focused, definitely more focused on my training, and that I've kind of penciled in the time, no more than you would do, where you're putting your day into 2 blocks of a morning and an afternoon. I'm definitely doing something similar where it's kind of non-negotiable. So if I have a meeting with someone, that's non-negotiable. I have to go to that meeting. So now this meeting is with my bike or with whatever piece of exercise I deem to be necessary. And until we come home from Lanzarote, the biking probably and the swimming is probably more important, because I know I can go out and run a 5K easy enough.
And I'm a stickler to routine. So I like to have, okay, and this day I'm doing this, and this is, and not have to think about it, but yet the sense of achievement when it's been all completed. And another thing that I got out of COVID was these Triathlon Ireland Zoom. I didn't know how to use Zoom. So Gary Couson started these Zoom classes on a Tuesday in COVID that he's continued with to this day. And it's like my Zoom Turbo community. And through it, I've been able, even though on Zoom, develop these friendships that I went down to Triathlon. No, I don't put my camera on because it's 6 o'clock in the morning. And I do not want to be seen at 6 o'clock in the morning, sweat bubbles and snot hanging off my nose. These guys didn't know what I looked like. I said, it's okay. I'll have a Galway tri-top on. And then when they saw me and then we met afterwards, it was like this family that I kind of had but had never really met. And now subsequently through that community, I've met more, because it was a connection to my Zoom class that I found this guy named Colin that I was able to go to Venice with. And he was a little training buddy out there and we got on great. And now another addition to my little triathlon family. So
it's amazing. It's like it's like the Zwift spin on a Monday night, and it's just that whole connection piece of, I think of Elaine and Karen and Oliver Harkin and a few others that have been on that spin since September 2020. Now you go to a race and you've just got that extra little bit of a connection with somebody. I hadn't met half these these people that I race with for Team RWB, but you go to a race and suddenly it's like, oh my God, I Zwift with you. Oh my God, yeah. You know what? It's amazing. When you look at the season ahead, Trish, other than racing in Finland and having lots of fun and enjoying lots more time on your bike, and you're going to Majorca for a little cycling holiday with your crew, what are you most looking forward to for the season ahead?
I think seeing what a season of shorter distance race prep, not only 70.3 distance, because it's a little bit closer time, but I might actually throw in a sprint and an Olympic. Oh,
no
God,
way.
I know. It's puke fest. It's total a heart rate zone and a training zone I absolutely hate. But just to see if I go and blast myself a few times, how is that going to affect my training? Because I've come back from Oman having done a block of training in Lanzarote before at Christmas, and then a 4-week block on my turbo torture in January, which I would never do at this time of the year. And then to kind of come back, recover from Omaning, like, woo, let's bring on the rest of the season. And now I'm kind of having to hold back because it's going to be a long one if I plan to go all the way to the end of October. But I think the thing I'm looking most forward to is setting myself a few new challenges, trying to find a few fast twitch muscle fibers in my body that even back in my basketball days didn't exist. So I don't know where I hope to find them, but trying to find a few new gears running. And I'm in the middle of a swim block, God forbid. I am trying to swim faster. And God bless Brendan, he really thinks I might be able to swim faster. And there's a few glimmers of hope and sunshine. But again, going back to these triathlon club swim sessions, like everybody's encouraging me. They know I'm ready to vomit. But I am still going to try and swim faster. Just try and go fast, Tricia. Just try and go fast. I'm like, that's like trying to say, just try and run fast. I don't actually know how to do that. So anyway, the swim block is a nice and big challenge. Try a few shorter distance stuff that I know I'm not going to enjoy, but I know will be good for me. And then to see what happens, can I sustain some level of enthusiasm to take me into a full distance race in October and then just crash after.
You'll deserve a break after
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Tricia Strelioff, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. We've been on my radar for a long time to get you on the show. So this is very appropriate to release it on International Women's Day. And the very best of luck with all of your racing. I won't go out on a bike spin with you because you'll just drop me before I even leave the house.
Zone 2, man. Zone 2.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. If you would like to hear more great episodes of the podcast, be sure to check them out on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. If you have any feedback or guest suggestions, then please pop me an email on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. I really would love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening. Stay safe, keep smiling, and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.